Error 41. Please, if this issue continues further, contact Disney Surf. What? Was anybody else up late as fuck last night in their bathroom smoking a little blizzard trying to watch the Mandalorian Season 2 premiere and kept refreshing the app, even switched over to my PC and kept getting that same error? This was crucial. Shout out to every single last person who broke the Disney Plus app. The same thing happens when Game of Thrones premieres on the HBO Max app or on their website. But jumping right into things, at this point, The Mandalorian Season 2 has probably been out for something like, depending on when this video drops, but like 12 hours. So there's probably 150 million plus videos of everyone breaking down some of the inside details of what happened in the Season 2 premiere, Chapter 9. In this video, I'm going to break down what I think will happen in Episode 2, as well as some Easter eggs that I personally spotted from Episode 1. Now before we get started, exalted ones, please do me a massive favor, and if you're new to this channel, slap a like, make sure you're subscribed, and then this is the most crucial part. Make sure you have your notifications turned on, so that way YouTube will give you an alert every single time I drop a video, breaking down The Mandalorian Season 2, or breaking down Lovecraft Country Season 2, or any of the many other subjects and TV shows that I cover on this channel. I mostly focus on Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire, and the up-and-coming prequel series to Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon. Go ahead and subscribe now. I have spoken, and this is the way. One more thing, we do have a subscriber goal of 100,000 by December. Could you help me reach that and make this little boy's Christmas wish come true? I've heard Santa's got COVID this year and won't be making the rounds. Now the first thing that I want to discuss in this prediction for Episode 2, or really for the rest of the season, is Boba Fett. It is literally the best time to be a Star Wars fan right now. The Mandalorian not only references the original trilogy, but also the prequel trilogy. And being the age that I am, I grew up in the very first Star Wars movie that I got to see in theaters was The Phantom Menace, Episode 1. Then I saw Attack of the Clones, and then I saw Revenge of the Sith like 17 times. But Boba Fett's armor being worn by Cobb Vanth the entire episode, and then Boba Fett himself making an appearance in the last few seconds of the episode is fucking amazing. In my opinion, this means one thing. Just as a quick refresher, for those of you who don't remember, the last time we saw Boba Fett was in Return of the Jedi. Basically, our heroes are all fighting against Jabba the Hutt and his forces, and then Chewie yells out, and then that gets Han Solo's attention, and he's basically like, Boba where? And he swings around and sort of hits him in this very comical way in the jetpack. This causes Boba to go do a spiral, bang into the side of a, I believe it was like a metal ship or some shit, and then he slid into the pit of the Sarlacc. So, what's interesting is that we all assumed he died. Now, there are some people online, and I first thought that maybe he's a clone. The difference is that if he was a clone from Attack of the Clones, or the Clone Wars in general, he'd be a lot older. I'm positive that this confirms that it's Boba Fett. The fact that the Jawas were able to find his armor and then sell it to Cobb Vanth for those crystals makes me think that Boba Fett wasn't all the way digested, and maybe his armor is what partially protected him. I mean, we've seen Darth Maul being able to survive being split in half. In just this episode, we saw Mando get swallowed by a crate dragon and survive that. Jon Favreau is literally correcting some of the biggest mistakes of the original trilogy, as well as the prequel series. It's amazing that you have someone who's such a big fan of Star Wars that was given the amazing job of being a showrunner for The Mandalorian. What I meant by correcting some of the mistakes is that a lot of the fans who saw the original series in theater, Boba Fett was their favorite character, and they were kind of pissed to see him just die like that, the way he did with Han Solo doing a goof and not really meaning to kill him. Everybody was like, I can't believe that's the end of Boba Fett. Well, I predicted in Season 2 of The Mandalorian, and maybe throughout this entire series, of course Boba Fett will want to track down his armor. This will lead to the possibility of him and Mando creating a relationship, but it may be tumultuous at first, as obviously Boba wants to get his armor back, and Mando, has a creed of like a true Mandalorian. Not to say that Boba Fett doesn't, but the fact that we've seen Mando being such a good guy, and we really only know Boba Fett as being like a baddie, it'll be interesting to see how the two of them get started off in their relationship. It'll be interesting to see Boba Fett, the original OG Mandalorian bounty hunter, track down this new dude with his fancy ass Beskar armor. Who else is excited as fuck for a Boba Fett Mando showdown? And then ultimately they become friends in the end. I think he'll help him start a new clan of Mandalorians. It will be Boba Fett, Mando, and Baby Yoda himself, along with all the others they've picked up, who will join Din Djarin's clan. Now, just as a brief refresher course, for those those are who are unaware, because a lot of the people who are subscribed to my channel may not be as big of a Star Wars enthusiast as I am, but the Mandalorians were a clan-based ethnic group that were comprised of members from multiple species, all bound by a common culture, creed, and code. Now, that alone, does that not sound like the cast of characters that we met in the first season of The Mandalorian that Mando befriends? But going a bit deeper, they originated on the planet Mandalore in the galaxy's Outer Rim territories. They had a particularly important role in galactic history, and they were legendary warriors against the Jedi. From their homeworld, the Mandalorians flourished across Mandalorian space and the galaxy itself at large. They colonized such worlds as Kalevala, Crown Nest, and conquered Dawn. Now, what's interesting to note, or one of the most interesting to note about the Mandalorian culture, is that they greatly opposed the Jedi and some of the ways of the Jedi long throughout the history of Star Wars. Before the events of the main series, like before the prequel series and before the original trilogy, the Mandalorians have long had a feud with the Jedi. So that's why at the end of The Mandalorian Season 1, when Mando is talking to the armorer and she says, you have to basically go return this Jedi to the other Jedis, and Mando goes, oh, you want me to take him to go to our greatest enemies, basically the space wizards? This is why Mando responds the way he does to the armorer, and also in Season 2, why he started to sort of change his ways. One of them being like his attitude towards the droids. When he arrives on Tatooine, he allows the droids to fix his ship, whereas last season he was like, I don't want them touching my shit. But also, another thing is that he's seeking out other Mandalorians. He's not doing what the armorer said and going to go immediately find other Jedis. He's going to go and talk with his other Mandalorian tribes or clans members just so he can figure out the right path. He's still hesitant to go and find the remaining Jedi, which I think we all know will likely be Ahsoka Tano, who, if you're unaware, I didn't really watch the Clone Wars all that often. I've recently been rewatching the season, obviously, to get prepared for The Mandalorian, but Ahsoka Tano is actually the Padawan learner of Darth Vader when he's Anakin, and she's really a hero of the Clone Wars, and a lot of what she does is told throughout the Clone Wars cartoon series. So when people found out in the trailer, or just throughout the Easter eggs and leaks that's happened while Season 2 of The Mandalorian has been filming, when we found out there's a chance that she'll be premiering, well, now it all sort of makes sense. At the end of this season, I'm pretty sure, maybe not necessarily the last episode, but the last few episodes, Mando will find out where Ahsoka is. Now, another prediction that I want to make, or speculation rather, is that Baby Yoda's identity will be explored further. Now, I've personally come up with that he is a failed experimental clone of Palpatine. Palpatine mixed in some of his DNA with some of Yoda's DNA that he potentially found in a Jedi vault, and in doing so, he gave this, we'll call it a Womp Rat type creature, because the Yoda species is actually unknown, it's unidentified. Speaking of which, I've actually gone over most of this information in a video that I did recently that's linked down below in the description. Make sure you go watch that if you want to know more of my in-depth theory, or more of my in-depth speculation about that theory. But basically, I guarantee you that by the end of Season 2 of The Mandalorian, we're going to find out more about Baby Yoda's identity. I don't know how much creative license that Jon Favreau's been able to obtain from Star Wars and George Lucas himself, but Yoda's species has always been a bit of a mystery. We've had a few other prominent members of his species, like Yaddle, that have been Jedi Council members before, but it happened so long ago, we don't really know much about their race. But I theorize that there was some DNA from that mysterious race that Yoda is a part of, and this is why Palpatine, or how Palpatine, found that DNA in a Jedi vault and mixed it with his. He realized that that race of Jedi Force-using, backwards-talking toad people are extremely Force-sensitive, and he wanted to combine it with his own DNA in order to make the perfect combination of good Jedi and his bad Sith DNA, and he wanted to extract that to make a clone of himself, so that he'll have the good side abilities, the dark side abilities, as well as the light side abilities of the Force. Now, one of the last predictions / speculations that I want to make for the rest of Season 2 and Episode 2 of The Mandalorian is that Moff Gideon will be ultimately defeated, and his true boss will be revealed. The next higher-up that's working in the chain of remaining imps after the Battle of Yavin. And remember, this story takes place, I think it's like 9 to 10 years after the Battle of Yavin, so we're going to find out who Moff Gideon's boss is. I wouldn't be surprised if Mando and maybe Ahsoka Tano and maybe even Boba Fett all team up to defeat this dude, get back the Darksaber, and that's how Season 2 ends. But I'm positive that next season we will be dealing with Moff Gideon's boss, and by the end of this season, Moff Gideon will likely die. He's my my one death prediction that I'm going to make for this video. You all let me know what you think about that down below in the comments section. And again, if you want to know my thoughts on the Darksaber and a theory that I have in particular about the Darksaber, go and check out that video that I mentioned before that's linked down below in the description about my Palpatine Baby Yoda clone theory. In that video in particular, I actually explain the origins of the Darksaber. But wrapping this video up, as I do want to remind you all to subscribe, like, and then turn your notifications on, because I will be covering The Mandalorian every episode. I'll try to break down each episode. If not, I'll try to break down predictions for the next episode, because it drops at 3 a.m. in the time zone that I live at. So it'll be hard to get those full episode breakdowns up on time, unless you all want me to and don't mind it being a few days late. But just quickly running through some of the Easter eggs that I personally spotted in the episode. Now, obviously, that pod racer that Cobb Vanth rides on is supposed to be very reminiscent of Anakin's pod racer from the original prequel series. Now, it doesn't look exactly the same as Anakin's had like 2 giant engines on it, but it's supposed to be reminiscent of it. They're on Tatooine, and we all know sand gets everywhere, so this whole episode was full of callbacks to not only the original trilogy, but the prequel series. And that pod racer, in my opinion, is probably from the same model line as the one that Anakin uses in episode 1. Also, I think it's pretty interesting to show the Sand people using these like ridiculously dumb and low-tech weapons. This looked like a Game of Thrones style dragon weapon ballista. And then they use these like old school long rifles that shoot like 1 laser bolt a second. It's pretty funny. They're like those traditional muskets with the fire rate of 1 laser beam per 10 seconds. And it's also hilarious because Mando is using his pulse rifle, and it fires relatively slow too. This whole shootout with the crate dragon is meant to be like an old school western, and I'm fucking thoroughly digging it. Although I think it's hilarious that the Sand people are using basically ballistas to take down this massive dragon. I don't know what the hell they thought would happen. Speaking of crate dragon, the reason why I keep calling it that is there's like no official name for it. I guess Tatooine dragon, but this reminded me of this mission from this game, this old Star Wars game called Knights of the Old Republic. But basically in that mission you have to assassinate a crate dragon, and you basically have to do the same thing that they did in this episode. It even shows the Sand people discovering the crate dragon pearl that you have to put in the lightsaber, the main character, during that mission. It was fucking amazing to see this. But I will say that this crate dragon completely destroys the dragon from Knights of the Old Republic. Another thing I noticed about the crate dragon, it's kind of weird. It makes this high-pitched noise that I was like, yo, why the fuck does that sound so familiar? And then I quickly did some research, and I found out that the high-pitched noise that the crate dragon makes is actually the same sound that Obi-Wan Kenobi used in A New Hope to scare the Sand people away. I can't believe they managed to make so many callbacks in one episode. Did anybody else notice that C-3PO graffiti from the beginning of the episode? That's pretty cool. I haven't really seen too much of that in Star Wars. Now remember, this whole show takes place 9 years after Luke defeats the Empire, so all of our heroes are still being talked about around the galaxy. Now the last thing that I want to discuss, the last little Easter egg, is Cobb Vanth. He was known as the Marshal in this episode, and for those who are unaware, Cobb Vanth is a human male who lived during the Galactic Civil War. He was once a slave, but he managed to overcome the situation and become sheriff of Mos Pelgo. He ran those bandits out of town using Boba Fett's armor. Now, eventually, Timothy Oliphant is a pretty good actor, and he played the hell out of that role. I think it's kind of silly that there is a place in Tatooine where people actually have southern accents. But yeah, I see his character Cobb Vanth returning, as he is a favorite throughout the Star Wars Legends and Star Wars canon, who likely show up again when Boba Fett tracks him down to find out what happened with his armor and who was the Mandalorian that took it. Shout out to Temuera Morrison. I can't believe they were able to bring him back for this new series. Alright, well, that's going to be wrapping this video up. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you could please slap a like on this video, as a like goal is going to be 420. Space weed, man. Also, make sure you're subscribed, and then it's the most important part, make sure you have your notifications turned on, so that way you get an alert every single time I drop a video breaking down The Mandalorian or Game of Thrones or one of the many other series that I cover on this channel. My name's Mark, and this has been Sir Hunt's. Special shout out to every single member of my Patreon family over on patreon.com/SirHuntsReviews. Those members are all listed right here. My name's Mark. Again, this has been Sir Hunt's Review. This is the way, and I've spoken.